We won. We beat Australia comfortably as well, should I say. And I was a bit nervous before the game, I'll be honest. I wasn't sure what to expect from the match itself because Australia have been so good. Scotland have been so bitty. Not a fault of the players, just the way that the fixtures were outlined from the summer tour in America, Canada, South America, to then this Autumn Nations series with the game against Fiji outside the test window, the game against South Africa, which was always going to be tough, then the Portugal match, which was the emerging nations game that they had to play. But then this was the big game for them that we were going to get a view of how good Scotland are against a very good Australia team. And a lot of pressure for them as well to win that game. Not necessarily win that game well, but to win the game and to put ourselves in a position to go forward to the Six Nations. Everyone's talking about it's our time. I've spoken about it for the last 2 or 3 years.
You've been saying it for years, pal.
I know, I have. But there's got to be a moment in time where it is our time. And that game showed me where we are. And it's a very easy thing to say. But there's a big difference. There's a big physical difference between South Africa, Ireland, and France. I know we've beaten France in recent years, and we spoke about it last year, I think. And then the rest, and then that kind of next tier of teams, like your Scotlands, like your Englands, like your Australias, like you probably put Fiji in that as well. And that's where we are. And I think we're top of that next group. So I think if you look at your South Africas, then your Irelands, then your France. Forget the Southern Hemisphere teams just for a moment on this, but you put New Zealand in and around that as well, obviously. And then you go into your Australias, your Scotlands, your Englands, your Fijis. And we're, I'd say, probably top of that next group. And that's where I say, it's our time now, but the profile of the team, how good the backs are, and the fact there isn't a huge amount coming through, it's a really seminal moment for Scotland rugby because we want to inspire the next generation coming through. The demise of Welsh rugby, England are very poor at the minute, and we go into a Six Nations down.
Whoa. We just battered Japan by 50.
Yeah, yes you did, Andrew. Yes you did, and we will get onto that. Japan's most unexperienced team we've seen, or inexperienced team that we've seen field. But I was very happy to see that because we dealt with the pressure really well. The physicality, I didn't think was going to be an issue. The games against Australia have been close, albeit we put 50 points on them a few games ago. But it's a game in which we are comfortable in physically, and that's where we have struggled against South Africa and your islands, the gain line, but we managed that incredibly well. And where I saw the growth in this Scotland team and just where we really are was at the very end of the game where we were defending our line and they were battering the line, not to win the game, but physically where they've been so good against Wales and against England, we dealt with that really well. And we know we've got the attacking ability. We know that Darcy Graham, Duan van der Merwe can score tries when they're on the front foot. But we look so comfortable in the chaos and the offloading game. The fact that we're not speaking loads about Finn Russell now, he's a world-class player, but Blair Kinghorn got man of the match, and rightly so, he was standout. But physically on this next step down of teams, we can deal with. And looking forward to the Lions, I saw a few of the Lions committee were in the posh seats in Scotland because it doesn't matter how you play against South Africa. You're playing against Australia, the Lions are. And that's a completely different game in terms of speed and offloading and that kind of quick chaos. And we've got players who look very comfortable in that space. So I was very happy with the game.
Yeah, and you talk about physicality and that defence at the end. I was really impressed with Scotland, and some people have gone, it wasn't that good a game. But you talk about the components of the game and the physicality, which is where, without being harsh, that's where Scotland have been questioned previously, hasn't it? And barring up, because it's still a big Australia team, but it was epitomised by the collision between Sione Tuipulotu and Suaalii in the first half. I know it's a great shot from Suaalii on Tuipulotu, but they both hit and it's a proper seismic collision. Suaalii goes off, doesn't he?
That actually looks a very bad injury. He took it well. He's clearly a hard man. And sorry to cut you off there, but just on that injury there, well, I have fear around seeing something like that because of the nerve, and we've seen some really nasty injuries with the nerve in the trap or in the neck, effectively. And even if it was a broken wrist, which it kind of looked like, that we know that that's a long-term injury. But yeah, just on that, hopefully Joseph Suailihi is okay.
Yeah, he it looked like a stingery kind of either broken wrist or like a nerve thing. I actually played with Chris Bell. Remember Chris Bell? First game at the Ricoh Arena for Wasps against London Irish. He has tried to put a massive shot in the 3rd minute. And this is how he ended his career. So you talk about how serious that injury is. He put a big shot in and then his arm was just dangling by his side. And Belly's a tough northern man. And he played on for about 10 minutes with his arm by his side, dangling around, and he had no feeling in it at all. And then eventually it was like, Goody, I've got to go. Like, I can't catch, can't pass, I've got nothing in that arm. Anyway, that one collision severed the nerve in his shoulder going down, and from that he had to retire. So it is we want to see big collisions, but also you don't want to see injuries like that, and it looked pretty bad. But I think Sione Tuipulotu goes over to him afterwards to sort of say, kind of hope you're okay, great collision, and he smiled. And then Suailihi's like, I see you in the car park, bro. Hey, I'm coming for you. So, yeah, we hope he's okay. But, the physicality of Scotland, led by Tuipulotu, we saw the try straight over the back of the line out, 5 metres out. That's a great call, that, isn't it? Everyone's prepping themselves for the drive. Oh, no, we're giving it to Tuipulotu straight over the top. He's running at Kellaway on his outside shoulder, and Tuipulotu stood up. And obviously the great story about his nan flying over from Australia and surprising him and seeing all that in the week. His Australian background, obviously, even though he is muck Scottish. It was great to see, and he led the charge. And you talk about the British and Irish Lions, nailed on British and Irish Lions 12, right? That performance, his general performances over the last few years have been phenomenal, and it's led with his physicality, and he's got great footwork as well. He's the complete player. I love watching him play.
Yeah, and I know a lot of the moments in the TV were doubling down on Sione Tuipulotu, and he was captain, and I agree with you, but I thought a lot of the Scotland lads who've come through the system have really stepped up. And we know Gregor Townsend's been under a bit of pressure because the Six Nations, we haven't really done much. But Darcy Graham, again, was just brilliant in contact. And if he can stay fit, he's an outside bet as well. I say an outside bet for the Lions. Like, you put him well in the mix, wouldn't you, really?
Yeah,
with how well he plays.
I said it before. We should send the Scotland. I nearly said our Scotland team. You've beaten Australia. I keep saying we. You've beaten Australia, Jim. England couldn't beat them. We'll see how Ireland get on against them this weekend. I'm sure we'll get onto that later. But actually, there's always this chat around not many Scots go on the British and Irish Lions tour, and it's a running joke, but it's not a running joke because this is a proper Scotland team now, isn't it? And if you sent them, we're winning it 3-0, lads. Send the Scots.
Yeah, but Jamie Ritchie was brilliant as well. He's kind of been in and out of the team as captain. Rory Darge quietly went about his business. Hugh Jones, like we keep talking about Sione Tuipulotu, Hugh Jones for me is a standout 13. Brilliant. He's a big game player, and he's done that for Scotland at the highest level. And then Blair Kinghorn, he gets man of the match, but you're talking about the aerial ability, and I know when Suailihi was on, he got a couple of the tap backs, but Blair Kinghorn now is a complete player. He steps in at first receiver, which then gets Scotland to the width a lot of the time because you've got Finn, who, as we know, is a world-class passer of the ball. But Blair Kinghorn is stepping up now. We know about his speed. We know about his kicking ability off the tee. Rangy, great athlete. But yeah, like these lads have come through the system as well. So as much as we want to talk about Sione Tuipulotu, and there was a thing about Scotland last week with all the foreigners that they've got in their team, I talk about a seminal moment for Scottish rugby. David Nusafora was there. He's doing a bit with Australia, with Scotland as well. He was there at the weekend. But we need to be talking up these players that have come through the system, come through the borders, like your Darcy Grahams, like your Blair Kinghorn through the school system, like your Rory Darge, your Jamie Ritchies, your Scott Cummins, who was brilliant again, and your Grant Gilchrists. So this is a profile of a Scotland team. The starting 15, the bench still worries me a little bit with quality coming on, but you look at Josh Bayliss. I know he didn't come through the system, but the speed to finish that try in the corner was great. So there's a load to be happy about at the weekend. Pressure on Scotland because of how well Australia have done. And we won that game comfortably with a load to work on as well. The line-out isn't great. The line-out's not functioning how we want it to. But we saw some innovations around, like you mentioned, the ball over the top for Sione Tuipulotu. But against the next level of teams up, your South Africas, your Irelands, your France, your All Blacks, who we've never beaten, you need to get their moments right. And if we did get their moments right against South Africa, could have, would have, should have, we would have won. And it would have been a Grand Slam Autumn Nation series for Scotland. But there's still some voids in the game that we need to get right for the Six Nations, because there's three runners in this next Six Nations.
What do you mean 3 runners?
France, Ireland, and Scotland.
And England. There's 4.
Well,
it's a 2-tier Six Nations now. 4 good teams and 2 not so good teams in Wales and Italy.
Well, okay, England have got a bit of work to do, but Scotland have got England's number. Scotland have got England at Twickenham next year. And I've just got a feeling. I've said that for 15 years.
You got a feeling. Oh.
So, Ireland's the one. We can beat France. Ireland's the one where we've really struggled because of how they play at the line and that physicality and the speed. Ireland's the one. I feel like we can beat France, albeit in Paris.
Not the way they played at the weekend. They were class.
Yeah, I know, but they don't believe in Scotland, do they? They don't fear us yet. So you're hoping.
Tell us the run of games. I know France is the Super Saturday. That's the last one.
We got Italy first up.
There you go.
Yeah,
another win.
Been close though. The Italy games have been close. I thought they were pretty decent against the All Blacks at the weekend. Then we've got our bogey team, which is Ireland. Then there's a break, and then we've got the old enemy.
You lost to Italy last year, though, as well, didn't you? When you were expected to win.
Did we lose, did we? I forgot.
Yeah, over there.
We did.
Yeah, there you go.
I forgot. We did. So that's what I mean. Maybe, I don't know. This is the trauma in me that just can't say it. I expect to beat Italy in the first game. Then we've got Ireland, England after a break. Then we've got Wales not being horrible. And then we've got the Grand Slam decider in Paris on March 15th.
Grand Slam decider.
Under the lights, which will be epic. But yeah, this is our Six Nations now. And I'm going to put pressure on the team. Gregor Townsend, is it his last Six Nations? I don't know. Maybe he's got a couple more in him. But yeah, naturally, I'm hoping. And if I was a religious man, I'd be praying. But I did see enough against Australia to think that we're there or thereabouts. Just need to beat France and Ireland.
Yeah, I think the thing with Gregor, and you mentioned it then, and you've spoken about this before, with this Scotland team now, and you say their seminal moment, completely agree with you. They are at their peak in terms of this team. Like, it's a proper, decent starting 15. Yeah, you mentioned sometimes you're a little bit worried about what comes off the bench. I know Dempsey was missing at the weekend, and Jamie Ritchie played because Dempsey was out injured, and he had an absolute stormer. But I think with Gregor and his lifespan, and I'm not trying to predict the future, but if you're Gregor Townsend, you're looking at this going, I've got another few years and maybe up to the next World Cup cycle with this team where you can continually try and peak and get better week on week. And, you've got a very good side. But then, as you said, what's coming next? What's underneath? So I think Gregor goes to the next World Cup and then he looks at the future and goes, I don't want to be the Wales of now because we haven't got loads of players coming through. So he might, So he might jump ship post World Cup in 2027. But my God, that is a big win for Scotland. A lot of positivity around how they're playing. And you mentioned Finn's passing. There was some clips flying around. I'm watching the game, watching the replays. There's a slow-mo of one of Finn's passes that goes out. I think it's to Hugh Jones. What a seed. Like, the boy can chuck the ball around for fun. And it was so good to watch his ball distribution, everything that goes with it. And we've spoken about him at length, but yeah, they're in a real good spot, Scotland. And that is, a big win, a statement win. And now you got to back it up in the Six Nations. I'm sure you'll beat Italy, but then the big test, as you said, is that Ireland game, round 2.
Rated out of 10 then, Jim. Scotland's Autumn Nation Series campaign.
7.5.
Oh, 7.5. Good number, James.
And how many of those lads do you think make the Lions tour?
One game where they've made it, have they? Well, the Six Nations is going to be key because that is the one thing when I've spoken to people, both asking why I didn't make the Lions and
Who's
why
asking
many
that?
Scots. I am. I've asked the question just in general. to people like why Scotland players don't make the Lions, and they feel like there's a mental block sometimes at the very highest level. The pressure's really on, which we've seen the Lions, how close some of the games can be. Does Scotland have that mentality to get over the line? So I'm looking at that team. Pierre Schoeman's got a chance. I'd say Ewan Asherman.
How good is it when the whole stadium does that?
Yeah.
Imagine that for yourself, like the whole stadium.
You're
an international. Yeah, it's great, isn't it?
I'd say the whole front row, the starting front row's got a chance. So Zander Fagerson, Ewan Ashman, Pierre Schoeman. Second rows, don't know. There's a lot of good locks out there, isn't there? But I'm a big fan of Grant Gilchrist. Rory Darger's got a real shot as well. Jack Dempsey. Yeah, Jack Dempsey at 8 for sure. Ben
Fagerson.
White.
You count Fagerson out?
I think you've got a lot of players like Fagerson. But he's been brilliant for Glasgow in the URC as well, especially in the semi and the final, the big games. He was brilliant. But Ben White as well, all round 9. Finn Russell for sure. I mean, what does he need to do to start? Is he the kind of 10 now that you think, right, we want to start? We'll get on to Marcus Smith. I thought Finn Smith was brilliant when he came on. But Marcus Smith as an athlete and as a player is brilliant. But we now know that you need more than being a brilliant player. You've got to be able to manage a team. And we'll talk about Sam Prendergast as well in attack.
Yeah, Finn Russell is the starting Lions 10.
Okay,
right now.
Thank you.
Right now and in the summer.
Okay, thank you. Because I do hope that, and I do kind of agree with that. And then both centres, Sione Tuipulotu and Hugh Jones. Actually, the whole back three, the back line, I think you could pick any of them now. Whereas before, you were clutching at straws to be like, I could. Like some of these players are not only got a shot at the Lions, they've got a shot of being the starting players.
Yeah, no, I agree. That whole back line, Tuipulotu's nailed on. Finn Russell's nailed on.
I'd say Hugh Jones is nailed on as well.
As your 10-12 starting. I'm talking starting. Hugh Jones, you've got Ringrose, who's very good. Ollie Lawrence, who's very good. Hugh Jones is definitely in that mix, but it's very competitive at 13 compared to, for me, Finn Russell and Tuipulotu and Blair Kinghorn to a certain extent as 3 standout players that could comfortably start for the Lions. And I don't think anyone would have a problem. Duhan van der Merwe, another one. You could have 4 Test match starting Scottish backs in that British and Irish Lions team, and no one would have a moan about it at all. On form, on ability, and on you've just beaten Australia, boys. So you're all in, lads. You're all in.
Oh, look at us! It's a Scotland podcast. I love it.
Pod.
Rugby pod.